Today on the Topping Show, Kamala Harris emerges and goes online and sounds woefully inebriated on stage. Jasmine Crockett makes a comment on immigration so mentally vacuous it goes viral, even more moronic than usual. The feds want to slap a $250 annual tax on EVs. General Motors expects to lose $45 billion due to the auto tariffs. The Aston Martin SUV gets an upgrade, but still no third pedal, aka a manual transmission. An illegal kills a father in Texas, turns out he had priors. And Volkswagen recalls their EV van, but it's for a silly reason. All of that and much more on The Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of The Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is a IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or business owner, you can reach out to the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, still giving away a free flamethrower with every IT purchase with Picatinny rail adapter so you can mount it to any standard AR-15, like all awesome accessories can be. Go to toppingtechnologies.com and click the flamethrower button to learn more, or click the URL in the video description below. And lastly, try to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you can click that button and tell your friends, I would greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part of the podcast, General Motors expecting to lose $4 to $5 billion over the tariffs. Now this is brought to us thanks to Motor1.com, specifically one of the writers there by the name of Chris Smith. And I'm sorry, let me give a visual. I'll give you a visual disclaimer. You're about to see a General Motors vehicle, which is usually viscerally disgusting. So just a little heads up. You're gonna have to see one of their abominations. Here, I'll slowly scroll down so you see the truck. And here you can say, quote, nearly all of GM's tariff costs come from South Korea, Canada, and Mexico, but the automaker says it won't raise prices. Oh, darn. I guess we'll still have access to those high-quality General Motors vehicles. I can't say that with a straight face. Though, Ford has had more recalls this year than GM thus far. Here you can see the Chevy Silverado. Nothing says America like a Frenchman, which, fun fact of the day, Louis Chevrolet was a race car driver that, founded Chevrolet with Billy Durant. They later bought back General Motors, but I partially digress, though I'm great for trivia nights. And to GM's credit, the truck it kind of looks good with that blue paint job. I'll give him some credit. Though, fascinatingly enough, the picture of the truck in this, article is one in which the truck is off-road. There's some rough gravel there. It looks like it's on the side of a mountain, perhaps, which I debate, could it actually get there? But I partially digress. Now, they say, quote, General Motors held its first quarter 2025 financial call. The event, delayed from April 30th to allow Trump administration to announce tariff changes, revealed GM will be out billions of dollars unless something changes. GM CEO Mary Barra expects, quote, tariff exposure to be between $4 and $5 billion, resulting from the Trump administration latest updates. On the call, GM Chief Financial Officer Paul Jacobson said $2 billion comes from imports from South Korea. Jeez Louise. People forgot about Daewoo and all those other car companies, and I know GM imports a lot, but geez Louise. They say imports from Mexico and GM for account for another $2 billion, and extra $1 billion attributed to the, quote, indirect materials cost. With another tariff impact factoring in, GM's full-year EBITDA adjusted guidance fell to range between $10 billion and $12.5 billion. Although, all things concerned, that's not too bad, they claim. By the way, the current administration is going back and forth on tariffs. That could change all by tomorrow. Well, yeah, by the time this video is rendered and uploaded, it will probably change yet again. Now, they say, quote, this is Mary Barra, again, the CEO of General Motors. She says, quote, we look forward to maintaining our strong dialogue with the administration on trade and other policies as they continue to evolve, unquote, which, yeah, her job is very political at the moment in terms of, well, especially on earnings call, you have to be very careful what you say, obviously. But yeah, it's one of those things where, yeah, these CEOs can't make too strong statements because the environment is unprecedentedly, haphazard, and who knows what the tariffs might be by the end of the time I finish this sentence. So, yeah, hard to predict how it'll actually impact their financial statements and what kind of deals Trump might make. So, yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty. Now they say, quote, that's especially true considering General Motors isn't planning to raise prices on its vehicles. Well, I would also argue they're overpriced as is, but, that aside, they say that is the company isn't planning to additionally price increase based on tariffs. Say models like the Chevrolet Tahoe jumped by over $2,000 compared to 2024, and the cheapest 2025 Chevrolet Silverado, of which the same production does take place in the plant in Mexico, now starts at over $40,000. They continue with a quote saying, quote, one of the two, Tuesday's presidential, I was going to say that's not grammatically correct, but they'll say one of the presidential actions will provide a tariff offset based on more than 1.5 million vehicles we build in the U.S. each year, said Jacobson. This will help mitigate a substantial portion of the tariffs on parts going into these vehicles and avoid additional costs to U.S. vehicle production. Unquote. According to the Tariff Confusion, GM sales in the U.S. were up a robust 17% for the first 3 weeks of 2025, which I'm actually surprised. The sales went up? Who's buying this stuff? They say this could be partially due to the buyers nabbing new cars before the full effects of the tariffs kick in, which, yeah, that was a big selling point for a lot of dealerships, even around here in DFW. They say, but given the nearly daily changes in tariff policies, things will likely change before 25 comes to a close, which, yeah, that's going to be a fascinating topsy-turvy year, and we'll see. Now, again, the Trump administration, the goal is to get the production back to the United States, which, again, for General Motors, that's possible. But again, it'll be interesting to see if the tariffs, if it's one of those things where the tariffs were locked in for like a decade, then yeah, every automobile company would come here in a second, because again, the tariffs would be so big. They increase the U.S. production labor and all the extra costs by, inherently doing business in the U.S. That would still be relatively small compared to the tariff. But I'm actually surprised. The only thing I know in terms of, automotive tariffs, historically speaking, is the chicken tax, which is why, yeah, that's why there's no really any imported trucks in the United States. They're all made here or, closely in Mexico or Canada. So it'll be interesting to see. GM says they're not going to raise prices beyond their standard kind of like year-over-year increase. So I was about to say good for consumers, but they're about to buy a product that inherently isn't very, reliable. So maybe it's not great for consumers. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting business news, you have the new Aston Martin SUV getting some upgrades, but still disappointingly having no third pedal, also known as a manual transmission, which, again, is very disappointing, but it's kind of the norm for most SUVs. I think the last exciting SUV ever produced was the 2009 Porsche Cayenne GTS, which was a V8 stick shift in an SUV, which in off-roading, it was a really cool thing. And I think it's such a beautiful piece of engineering. It's the reason why if you find them, I think they imported 290, they're like $50,000+, even with 120,000 miles on the odometer. So yeah, the odds of finding one aren't great, but if I ever had to get an SUV, I would definitely go that route. Now, this is an article brought to us thanks to Chris at thedrive.com. And he says, quote, the 2026 Aston Martin DBX S is a 717 horsepower SUV with a hot hatch styling and turbos from Valhalla. They say, quote, with huge magnesium wheels, a carbon roof, supercharger turbo tech, and vertically stacked exhaust tips, the DBX S is the most extreme DBX yet, which it actually looks pretty cool, though the grille is larger than a GM Ford truck or one of those trucks' grills, which is to say comically large. Now, they say, quote, there's a new Aston Martin SUV variant, and it's the most powerful one yet, using an enhanced version of the same AMG-borrowed 4-liter twin-turbo V8, which, is anyone else disappointed it's not a V12? I know Aston Martin has a long history of using V8s as well, but I don't know, to me that would have made it even more iconic, but that's just me. Now they say, quote, the DBX S makes 717 horsepower, 664 foot-pounds of torque. The power bump comes courtesy of the turbo tech borrowed directly from the upcoming Valhalla supercar. This consists of a bigger compressor wheel and other internal improvements that deliver more push to the top of the rev range. The new Top Dog DBX continues to use a 9-speed wet clutch automatic transmission. Boring. But shift points in auto mode are tweaked to better suit the extended rev range, while downshifts in Sport and Sport Plus modes have been made more aggressive, which, let's pull up a couple more pictures here. It looks looks very modern. Kind of boring from the side, but I kind of think that's most SUVs. They seem to all share many of the same lines. Now, they say, quote, on paper, though, performance figures aren't drastically different than the 707. In fact, this car's 3.10 to 60 second time, wow, geez Louise, and 193 mile per hour top speed is unchanged from the DBX. Well, that's not very, you pay for the top trim line, and it's still the same specs, which pretty disappointing, but still kind of cool that an SUV will hit 193 miles per hour, which I was about to say, where would you use that? Let's be honest, Texas and other awesome places, maybe Wyoming. Now they say, quote, lightweight options can make the S almost 104 pounds lighter than the 707, a car which, to be clear, will still be offered. The optional 26-inch magnesium wheels are apparently the world's first for any production SUV and cut almost 42 pounds of unsprung weight, which Yeah, unsprung weight. Yeah, that type of effect is dramatically different. It's great for performance. That's why all those top supercars have the carbon fiber and the really high end actual rims. I mean, I think most famously, the Ford GT was the first quote unquote mass production, or not one off that came standard with carbon fiber rims. Yeah, the sprung weight is the thing you think about everything that goes on top of basically the axles and wheels and everything. The unsprung is actual things that, the rotational weight, so the rims. Now, that is pretty impressive. Now they say it'll be improving the ride quality, steering 23-inch forged aluminum wheels are standard. A single weave carbon fiber roof is the largest carbon fiber part of any kind put into any Aston Martin and cuts down 40 pounds from the highest point of the vehicle, which is even better. There's even an optimal front grille made of lightweight polycarbonate that surely shaves off many grams, which, yeah. Let's get some better pictures in here. There you can see it being driven excitedly in the mountains, which, sadly enough, I can't help but think 1% of these sporty vehicles actually go out there and are really used the way they're engineered to be. I feel like most of them are pavement queens, but Then disappointingly, you see the interior, which is, as usual, disappointing, especially because you see that anemic, boring shift selector, which is automatic. Now they say the DBX-S gets a steering ratio that's 4% quicker, not only making it more responsive to speed, but also cutting the turning circle by 1.6 feet. Modified exhausts with vertical stacked quad tips apparently make the V8 sound even better. The most notable upgrades seen in the S, however, may just be cosmetic. Aston has graced its SUV with uncharacteristically Google-ish and almost hot hatch-looking incorporated red trim taken straight out of the Honda Type R and Hyundai N playbooks, as well as 23-inch wheels sporting a design that wouldn't look out of place, say, on a GTI Golf, which, yeah, I guess I could kind of see that. Look at all that aero and those exhaust tips, which they actually don't look that great. And yeah, it almost looks like the Gen 10 Honda Civic Type R that went way overboard when it comes to air. It was almost as if they took a AutoZone accessory aisle and glued everything onto the car, albeit with nice, probably 3M adhesive tape. Don't get me wrong. I have yet to have a Honda Civic owner hear of stuff falling off yet. But yeah, it looks a little too much to say. Let's say inside the DBS-X gets the Alcantara and leather surfaces with a neat, herringbone pattern on the seats. The Aston Martin logos have apparently been embossed and debossed into the headrest with, they claim, 1.6 tons of pressure in what the company says is an industry-first technique. Really? And yet, I don't think a single person I know would care. I'm looking at the headrest right now. I mean, that's great, but is also no different than, I have a debossed leather coaster for my tech company and my swag shelf to the left of me. And yeah, you make an image on metal and then you push it into leather and it makes shape. In this case, it took 1.6 tons of pressure, which I guess that is so much it maybe is industry first. Of all the things to brag about, that is the most unusual thing I've heard a car company bragging about. But yeah, kind of interesting. We'll see if this thing sells. Aston Martin desperately needs more SUV sales. It's kind of sad to think that these iconic car companies, in terms of their business, viability, they need SUVs and crossovers for the, additional revenue as everyone buys them, or seemingly more and more people buy them, with being one of the biggest categories that consumers are fleeing to in the United States. That's why even Porsche makes, kind of sad, but a majority of their volume of units do come from their SUVs. But again, that helps stabilize the companies in Aston Martin. Their finances and their company stability is about as stable as U.S. government. They lose a lot of money. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the cultural part podcast, you have an illegal taking the life of a Texas dad, and turns out he had many priors, which is a theme we see more and more, and yet again, another reason why we need a secure border. Now, this is brought to us thanks to End Wokeness, and is one of his most viral posts this quarter, and he says, quote, "Breaking, illegal migrant kills Texas dad in front of his family. He was able to stay here despite 2 prior kills and prior arrest." Which, yeah, this is why borders matter. Not just Borders, the bookstore, which is an exceptional establishment formerly headquartered in Michigan that went bankrupt over a decade ago, but actual borders, because this is a side effect. And unfortunately, it seems like a lot of people are still saying we need an open border. Those people are mentally vacuous, but they also vote. Thankfully, they did not outnumber us this time in terms of the presidential election. Now, I was going to say probably a visual disclaimer, but I'm going to go ahead and play this. Is thanks to Star 2 News.
Wearing a gym tank and wasting no time when the door opened, Surveillance video.
I want to say, of course, but you know how he looks like. No suit. That's right. Not a single suit. Not even a sweater. He wears a undershirt, which is, well, I'm pretty sure not politically correct to say, but I mean, it's a wife beater is what I was told when I was a kid. Many tattoos. And it looks like he has some type of that baseball cap or do-rag. I don't know. It's some type of something's covering his scalp. But without too much further ado.
Wasting no time when the door opened. Surveillance video appears to capture 36-year-old Andres Fernandez de la Paz shooting once.
How long of a name is that? Jeez Louise.
Screams followed. He tried to kick the door back open, then ran off to leave in his purple Maserati. The bullet hit 34-year-old Edieski Incencio Pinero in the chest, a father and husband who died at the hospital after being shot in front of his own family. His wife calls him a wonderful person. She doesn't have any bad memories of him and says he was a good father and friend. It's a difficult situation, she says. Fernandez de la Paz is her ex-brother-in-law, who, according to court records, threatened to kill the family and flee to Mexico. He allegedly shot 2 men and killed one of them in the past, but records show prosecutors dismissed that murder case in 2017, citing self-defense issues. And since 2022, a law enforcement source tells KPRC2 News Fernandez de la Paz has been leading a credit card skimming operation across Texas. Arrested in 2023, Sour Lake, Texas police confirm they caught him with skimming devices during a traffic stop after he placed one at a gas pump. Days later, sources say the FBI took over the investigation, but no federal charges got filed. Then last fall, captured in this surveillance image at a retail chain. A source says he was caught using stolen credit card information to buy high-dollar items through the store's app, landing him in the Fort Bend County Jail. He got released both times when records show Fernandez de la Paz had an ICE detainer. He's been in the country illegally since 2016, was ordered removed in 2019, and ICE tells KPRC2 News in a statement the Cuban government refused to accept his return at that time, preventing ICE from carrying out his removal.
Pathetic. Yet more criminals roaming the streets. Now, the real question is, will they actually face justice this time? I mean, let's just say I'm pretty pessimistic to think it'll ever happen. Now, I was going to also, I mean, are you going to let Cuba tell us what to do? Really? A third world hellhole led by dictators? If anything, it'd be hilarious. I don't think Trump would do this, but why don't you just take that guy, fly him over, give him a parachute? That works. You know, I'm not, well, or, you know, or actually let the victim's family pack the parachute for him and then, you know, drive over Cuba and push him out of the plane. What's Cuba going to do? But yeah, turns out, oh yeah, we just let him stay here. Ridiculous. And this got 2.7 million views and 41,000 likes, and yet another reason to make sure your family is prepared for everything, because unfortunately, there are terrible things out there trying to hurt us. Now, going to top comments, one of the first ones, though, not the number one by number of likes, though I'd say number one by number of handsomeness. Obviously, I'm kidding, it's hashtag the Topping Show on X, and I say, quote, activist judges are destroying America, getting 1 like. Paul Zupa says, quote, this is why activist judges need to be jailed and why Joe Biden needs to be tried for treason. Gave 1.3 thousand likes. True. Barefoot Pregnant says, quote, Trump's policies kept us safe. This tragedy shows the need for real change. Getting 19 likes. Ryan says, these are the illegals Democrats are protecting. Let that sink in. Getting 1.5 thousand likes. Gina Broderick says, quote, this is effing unbelievable. No wonder these illegal monsters come here. The justice system has been a piece of cake for them. Getting 2.5 thousand likes. Yep. Let's see. Mirthful Moments has a quote from Wall Street Apes, and he says, quote, this, the Democrat Party is not a political party. They're a foreign-controlled domestic terrorist organization masquerading as a political party to bring down America, unquote. Getting 350 likes. And A+ for Scrabble word. Masquerading is a really good one. I have not played Scrabble for several years. Going down more and more. You have Lil Mo saying illegal immigrants commit less crime than that of legal citizens, getting 92 likes. A contrarian statement. And he actually got the most responses, 473. What's he ratioed? Let's find out. Callie Davis says, quote, liar, the first action they commit is illegal. Then stats and anecdotal evidence destroys your words from that point forward. Getting 88 likes. 89 likes. Not ratioed, because again, Little Mo, not from The Simpsons apparently, got 96 likes. Scrolling down more and more. Texas Drifter says, it doesn't matter, they shouldn't be here in the first place, so any number is too high, getting 29 likes. Little Mo says, neither should the descendants of Europeans. No, we won. I mean, I was going to say we. My family's from Cuba and then Poland, I believe, but we came illegally. And again, the United States, well, we won. Because again, land has been conquered since the dawn of time. Yeah. Going down more and more. Catholic vengeance definitely ratioed Mr. Little Mo, saying, quote, yes. Well, I was going to say, I don't agree with the statement, but he said, quote, yes, thanks, black people, 13% of the population, but 60% of the violent crime go back to Africa. Getting 272 likes. Jeez Louise, he was ratioed. And again, the man in the video did look Hispanic. And again, he was from Cuba. Okay. Well, because everyone leaves Cuba because it's a shitty hellhole. That's why my family got out. That's what communism does. Going back to the main comment section. So let's see. Scrolling down more and more. A lot of people posting compilation pictures of all the people, all the American citizens who have had their lives taken by illegals. Let's see. Man Van Soul simply says, this is pure evil, getting 264 likes. Scrolling down here. Ooh, another contrarian statement. Right-wing Zoomer says, quote, Texas dead. His wife doesn't even speak English and was married to an illegal's brother at one point. Is this just illegals killing illegals? Getting 775 likes. It's a lot of likes. Was not ratioed either. Going down more and more. Someone's hashtag is quite literally huge retard. And it says Texas dad, and it says wife needs a translator. Which, yeah, I would argue if you're an American citizen, you should speak English. Like, I mean, my family came here speaking Cuba, or, my mom's side of the family, and they quickly learned English. But yeah, I mean, again, if they have the paperwork, they came illegally. They're still citizens, even if they don't speak our language. They got 159 likes. So it'll be interesting to see if this rallies any more support to secure the border, or if, kind of just gets swept under the rug. But let me know your thoughts, because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. I'm going over to the political part podcast. You have Kamala Harris coming on screen and looks pretty inebriated, talking even worse than usual, which is saying something, though some might argue still speaking more eloquently than myself. Now, this is brought to us thanks to Don Luker on X, and he says, quote, breaking, Kamala Harris is delivering her first speech since leaving office, and many viewers claims she looks drunk. Instead of addressing the concerns of liberal voters, Harris expressed how much she has been thinking about a video of, quote, elephants at the San Diego Zoo during the earthquake. The recent loss of Trump appears to be taking a toll on former VP, unquote, which, I mean, I'm not surprised. She's a Democrat. Of course, she'll care more about, literal animals at the zoo over all the American citizens and taxpayers. I'm only partially exaggerating, but not by much. At least she didn't suit up. She has a blazer. So at least she put on a clean suit, so she did one thing right. But without too much further ado, it's about 32 seconds, though it might feel like an eternity. But we'll get through it together, in theory. No promises. This is credited to C-SPAN. Let's see. Maybe the ex-Twitter's being too harsh on her. Maybe she delivers a brilliant eloquence of why we should care. I mean, obviously not, but let's hear what she has to say.
In fact, please allow me, friends, to digress for a moment. Okay. It's kind of dark in here, but I'm asking a show of hands. Who saw that video from a couple of weeks ago? The one of the elephants at the San Diego Zoo during the earthquake? Google it if you've not seen it. So that scene has been on my mind. Everybody's asking me what you've been thinking about these days. Well,
of all the things that is on your mind, all the crime, the border that's finally being secured, thankfully, unprecedented, uncertainty of the economy, uncertainty of the stock market, certain industries growing, some are shrinking. No, what's on her mind is a random video of a zoo animal, which, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. And she sounds slightly more inebriated than usual, not saying much, but it got about 1 million views and 5.9 thousand likes. One of the first comments comes to us thanks to Donnie Dizzle, saying, quote, that was almost a president. We clearly lucked out, getting 333 likes. Yeah. Frankly Beach says, it's good to have JD Vance. And JD Vance has a quote saying, unlike Kamala Harris, I don't need 4 shots of vodka before every meeting, getting 317 likes. We also have Gem Insider saying, quote, Mark Safe from Kamala Harris's first 100 days as president of the United States, getting 88 likes. Tog says, quote, I thought this was AI, getting 10 likes. Let's see here. Any other country? I don't think there's going to be any contrarian statements. You have Kara Ford saying best the left could run on, and it says meme of the day. And you have, it's, wow. Yeah, it's actually, it's kind of on point. Kamala Harris is a scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz, and Tim Walz is the lion. And, you know, Kamala's in this meme saying, if only I had a brain, and Tim is saying, if only I had more tampons. Getting 3 likes. They should get more than that. We'll make it 4 likes. You also have Millennial Mechanic saying, quote, I'm so glad that we don't have to endure that cackle in the Oval Office for 4 more years. That, and there was only so much condensation I could take from someone with an IQ lower than a bottle of paste, getting 53 likes. Esther saying, quote, I believe she's what you call a, quote, functioning alcoholic. If you think it's hard to deal with her, just imagine what she's like sober. Guaranteed she's unbearable, getting 94 likes. Might be. Allison simply says, bullet dodged. Thank the heavens for dodging that Kamala Harris bullet, getting 30 likes. Let's see. Tess Brown PhD says, I can't watch it. I can't physically hit the unmute button. Getting 50 likes. Let's see. You also have Brett Murphy saying liberal brainlessness, crybaby loser, getting 13 likes. Though, I mean, she really wasn't crying about her loss, though she did lose. Although, to her credit, she did win nearly every state that does not require voter ID, which, I mean, yeah, I'm sure it's just a coincidence that the states that don't check voter ID, she won, was it basically all of them? Purely a coincidence, I'm sure. You also have Miss Pinky says something is totally off with her, getting 25 likes. Black Man says, why is it always the worst people that represent us? The black community really needs to figure things out, getting 32 likes. Yeah. Now the real question is, what is Kamala Harris's future? Will they run her again? God, I hope so. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting political news, you have Jasmine Crockett having a facepalm moment talking about deportation, her most mentally vacuous moment yet, which is saying something. This is brought to us thanks to End Wokeness. And when they were asking Jasmine Crockett about deportations, she's like, well, that's crazy. What other countries just push, have people come here? Yeah, they have for decades, basically. Basically the dumping ground for them. And, I mean, I would dare to say this is even more... Yeah, no, I would say this is more of a pain in the rear to watch than Kamala Harris. I think Jasmine Crockett is, dare I say, more unbearable, more mentally vacuous. Perhaps I might just have to throw a poll on the YouTube community, or poll, whatever you call that thing. And yeah, I might just have to do that poll. Now, it's only about 23 seconds, so I'm sure it'll feel like an eternity. Here's a Jasmine Crockett.
As far as I'm concerned, you randomly kidnapping folk and you throwing them out of the country against their civil rights, against their constitutional rights. And frankly, how would they feel if some other country decided that they were going to just start throwing people randomly in our country? Like that is absolutely insane. So yes, all I got to say is y'all need to get these fools out of here. But Deborah,
grammar be damned, she did make a statement. And yeah, that's what our countries have been doing to us for decades. Trump famously said, I think one of the most first viral moments in politics was, they're not sending their best. And as we've seen, as we have more and more crime from illegals, yeah, they're clearly sending some of their worst as well. Now, this went pretty viral. Got 1.7 million views and 20,000 likes, with one of the first comments come to us thanks to Stable Genius, saying, quote, Crockett is dumber than a pile of whale dung, getting 7.7 thousand likes. And Wokeness responded saying, what did whale dung ever do to you? Getting 3.1 thousand likes, which... this is an oddly specific comparison. Gunther Eagleman simply says, she cannot be this dumb, getting with 13,000 likes. Oh, she can. Bow World says, she's so dumb, getting 3.3 thousand likes. Cool Christian Engineer says, we need to clarify something about Crockett first. And it's a little breakdown saying her salary is $174,000, which is outrageously overpriced. But her net worth is $9 million. She also has $2 million townhouse, $1.5 million loft, and was it a $1.5 million lakefront cabin? Getting 1.2 thousand likes. But she always says that, the lakefronts are going to be overflowing with water in a couple of years because global warming, or no, they rebranded it. It's climate change is what they say now. But yeah, they keep buying lakefront property. Fascinating, weird. That's so weird. You also have Paul Zupa saying, quote, that's what's been happening for decades. How dumb is Crockett? Getting 520 likes. Very dumb. Matt Van Swole says, Lord Almighty, she does not have 2 brain cells to rub together. They literally send all of them here. Getting 3.7 thousand likes. And yeah, true. Maverick says, quote, why is this private schooled privileged woman pretending to be so ghetto what does she gain from this act? Getting 861 likes, which, yeah, her voice, her tone, her grammar, it all changed a little while back. He's right. She was, very much private schooled. And earlier in her political career, she sounded what people would probably say is more normal. And I think she's trying to relate to her voters and her donors. It's not too dissimilar when George W. Bush, you wind back the clock many years, actually sounded extremely articulate and pretty smart. And then when he went for president, all of a sudden he changed. He became a good old Texas boy. He dumbed down his language and a vernacular. A lot of politicians do this. That's why I disdain so many of them on the left and the right, frankly. Is this actually her earlier in her career? Yo Me says, quote, why does she behave like this? It's all an act. Here's a video of Jasmine Crockett from, doesn't say the date, but it's earlier in her career.
Absolutely. First of all, it's good to see you in the new year. No one could have told me that when I went down to Austin, now looks like a little bit over a year ago, that I would be running for Congress. It's just not what my plan.
Yeah, she sounds very different compared to.
As far as I'm concerned, you randomly kidnapping folk and you throwing them out of the.
Which, again, grammatically speaking, she means they sent one person because you said folk, not folks. But aside the point, she sounds very, very different. Let's see, is anyone sticking up for her, saying she's great? The same memes every time. Every time there's a thing about Jasmine Crockett, someone is holding an old tire with all the phrase, and it says, I found one of Jasmine Crockett's eyelashes getting 131 likes, which I think is silly when all women do this. I don't know if she does it more than anyone else, but yeah, they seem to be really obsessed with very large eyelashes, which no guy really cares about. I don't even know who started that stupid trend. And this is credited to Sons of Liberty 357, which I think is probably most likely correlated to good old caliber of pistol. Though one may argue God's caliber 45 ACP is more old school, but I partially digress. Not seeing. There's Mr. Pitbull saying her owner. It's George Soros's son, looking creepier than usual, which is saying something. Though he did suit up. He did something right. Getting 348 likes. But again, this is one of the most fastest growing in popularity representatives on the Democrat Party. And who knows? Maybe she'll be the front runner next time around. Shoot. People, they seem to like her more and more on the left. And again, she's making these statements for reasons. She's raising a lot of campaign funds. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting political news, the federal government wants to put a $250 annual EV tax so they can get more money from us. Because, well, not me, I'll drive an EV, obviously. My cars will always have 3 pedals, also known as manual transmission, and a gas engine. But some people prefer disposable vehicles that can't last more than a decade. Not me. Now, this is credited to Inside EVs. Specifically, Rob is right over there. I'm a little disappointed. They say Inside EVs. They should have an EV being cut in half as like their logo, but it's just, the words Inside EVs. But I partially digress. And they say, quote, the feds want a $250 annual EV tax. Here's why it's a scam. It's equivalent to paying a tax on nearly 1,400 gallons of gasoline, nearly triple the amount the average internal combustion engine commuter uses annually. Which, yeah, and yet EVs are worse for the roads because they weigh a lot more. And it's one of the reasons they go through tires like a kid chewing Hubba Bubba gum, which is good for about 18 chews. Well, maybe three chews, then it's crap. It's because the tires are just, there's so much more weight. The tires are worn out that much quickly. It actually does wear down the road at a much higher rate than a traditional car that weighs a lot less. So again, I understand why they would want a greater tax on EVs, though granted, I think most taxes are just stolen from us and poorly spent. And I debate how much upside or benefit do we really get from paying taxes these days, but I partially digress. Now, they say, quote, the feds have proposed charging EV owners a $250 annual registration fee. The money is meant to address the lack of revenue collected from gas tax, but cost represents the equivalent of buying, again, 1,400 gallons. And I say, quote, if you buy a car with an engine, you're putting 18.4 cents into Uncle Sam's pocket for every single gallon of gasoline you pump, which I find abhorrent as well. We should get rid of that. People realize it's also taxed on a state level as well. There's so much taxes on gasoline, it's criminal. There's so many taxes on pretty much everything we do is criminal. If we were to actually break down the pie chart of every $1 we make, how much we actually get to keep versus stolen, people would be woefully depressed and might actually vote differently or do something different. But I, again, partially digress. They say, quote, the money seems to be like a drop in the bucket, but it's critical to funding infrastructure projects like fixing potholes. It's funny because I can't but notice a lot of times they're never actually fixed. They also use for allegedly, I should add that, they're allegedly used for fixing hot potholes, patching bridges, and even public transportation. the gas tax made up 81% of the $43.5 billion in revenue disposed to the Highway Trust Fund, a program used to pay for those projects, allegedly. I say that because, yeah, all highways are crap. And even, I mean, locally, granted this is anecdotally in Texas, we pay for the tolls. We have a toll tag, or that's what we call it here. But in addition to the gas tax, you pay to use the highway. So there's more robbery on robbery on robbery. They say, quote, so if you're one of those tree-hugging electric vehicle owners who dares to bypass the gas station entirely, the federal government has a message for you. It's time to pony up $250. Now they say, it might seem fair, but it's more complicated. They also are proposals to charge $100 for hybrids, plus a $20 charge for all vehicles beginning in 2031, which, I can't imagine how much more they want to steal from us. And they also have a Republican senator, what is this, by the name of Mr. Graves, saying he actually thinks that there should be a $1,000 EV tax proposal. It's even greater than that. They also note that EV ownership is continuing to rise, which is true, albeit at a decreased rate of adoption. But they now note that about 1.4% of all vehicles in the United States are electric, and they're noting that correlates to about $415 million in lost tax revenue because, again, they're not paying at the pump, though they are paying for electricity at home, and that is also taxed as well because why not just tax everything we do? It seems like it's what the government does best. Now, it'll be interesting to see if this passes. I can't help but think the government wants more money. Republicans and Democrats love to steal more money from us, so I can't help but think, it probably will pass. And again, they got to make up for that lost revenue they claim, and in theory, they'll fix our roads. In theory. But it's interesting because, again, EVs are increasing in popularity, especially for people who can't do math about long-term ownership ROI, but they're increasing in popularity. So it'll be interesting to see if this actually gets passed. But let me know your thoughts. As always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the business blunder of the day, you have the Volkswagen EV van being recalled, but is for a stupid reason, as usual. Now, this brought to us thanks to Emmett White, go over at Road and Track, and they say, quote, Volkswagen is recalling the ID Buzz for an unusual reason, a very wide third row bench. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is going after the electric throwbacks van seats in an effort to ensure seatbelt efficiency. Because, of course, there's laws upon laws upon laws upon laws when it comes to manufacturing vehicles. I always joke, they don't make cars for you and I, they make them for the government. Because that's one of the reasons they suck. Because of all the rules and regulations. Now, I'm sorry, I should put a visual disclaimer. You have to see the new EV Volkswagen minivan on the screen, which looks terrible. The only thing worse than that is their sales, which is quite abysmal to say the least. Now, going to the article, they say, quote, Volkswagen has just recalled what appears to be all of its U.S. model ID Buzz. So that's not too bad, like 18. Now, they say the reason is sort of serious, albeit it's new to us. They say that the third row seat is just too wide, says the feds. The recall, which was submitted to the Federal Safety Watchdog Agency on April 23rd, explains that Volkswagen third row bench seat was designed with two designated seat positions that don't align with current seating surface width standards. So much bureaucracy, so much regulation. In simple terms, the third row is capable of holding 3 passengers, but only has 2 seat belts. Oh no. So they size these for their American buttocks, and now they're being punished for it. I'm only partially kidding. We do need to get our health together. But that's beside the point. They say that, quote, regulators seem to be worried about such large seats. Arrangement will lead to the temptation of putting a third person in between. God, this is stupid. Of course, this unbelted occupant is liable to be gravely injured in the event of a crash or injury. Volkswagen says the seating surface width error is a result of misinterpretation of a section of the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards, which I can't help but think that book is larger than the U.S. tax code and probably just as corrupt and morally vacuous and mentally vacuous. Now, they say that, however, the manufacturer does note the owner's manual limits the number of passengers in an electric van and the number of seat belts, which actually it would also be pretty uncomfortable. It's not like a bench seat where the seats are completely flat. These actually do have some bolstering so that it does look intuitively like it's for 2 people, albeit 2 white Americans, and you'd be pretty uncomfortable to try to sit in the middle. Now, they say that Volkswagen says its first round found out about the potential noncompliance issue in February and began investigation shortly after. In March, Volkswagen was conducting their FMVSS compliance testing with an external testing institute and confirmed the width of the third row seat was non-compliant by April 1st, which is a cruel joke because it's going to cost them money and some people might care, so it might hurt their brand a little bit. Now, they note that there have been no recorded field claims of safety issues stemming from the width of the third row. So, I'm sorry, we're going to show another angle of the vehicle, which, God, it looks so bad. Decades of hype about the new Volkswagen van and utterly disappointment. An overpriced, useless EV, which will depreciate like a rock. Worse than a Mercedes, I dare say. Now, they say the fix is a strange one, but relatively easy. Volkswagen says it will add a unpadded trim to limit the seating surface width of the third row bench. This will limit the ability of 3 passengers to squeeze there and make the ID Buzz comply with federal standards. The scope of this recall is small on paper. Oh, wow. Less than 6,000 units included, but a closer look at the ID sales figures reveals that it likely covers all of the U.S. market. Year-to-end sales figures show that 1,162 units were sold at the end of 2024. That's terrible. In terms of car sales, that is abysmal, to say the least. Now, they also know that with first quarter numbers from 2025, should the units being sold at 1,901, the total comes up to 3,063 recorded unit sales, leaving a delta of 2,754 units. It's certainly possible that the time span between March 31st and April 23rd yielded 2,574 sales. I don't think so. But respect, a majority of these are uncounted units at dealership inventory. Probably. Either way, it appears Volkswagen may be on the hook for updating the entire fleet of US ID Buzz models, which, yeah. And again, the Volkswagen CFO, I'm not sure why he did this publicly, but publicly he did say about 2 years ago, we have about, I don't know, 1 year ago, we have about 2 years left of viability as a brand. Again, Volkswagen Group, which has Porsche, Lamborghini, Ducati, and Audi, they're okay, but the Volkswagen brand specifically is the one that's doing terribly when it comes to sales, and many would argue reliability. And you have a recall, which is, again, I can't imagine how much of a pain in the rear it is to comply with all the federal BS standards when it comes to the automotive industry. But the fact they don't have someone, Johnny, on the spot, and this is, I mean, Volkswagen, for some reason, is bragging about this vehicle. They're doing a lot of press behind it. I mean, whole marketing campaigns. One would think you put extra care and attention to what you consider to be something very important to your company. And yet, apparently not, as Volkswagen has to recall their ID Buzz. So I gotta say, Volkswagen, you are certainly the business blunder of the day. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, try to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So you can click that button. I greatly appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.